Ladies and gentlemen, I am brought in part by my good friend Halfsend, aka Tony. He is another Marvel Future Revolution YouTuber and Twitch streamer, much like myself. How are you doing today, Tony?
I'm amazing. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good too. We were talking a little bit before we turned on the camera here about how we were kind of both in a situation very similar where we're both a little bit humbled by the amount of support we've been getting. I mean, we've been getting a lot more views, each of us, than either one of us is sort of used to. I think that's fair to say, right? So
I'm it's been super humbling, like just to get online and have hundreds of people sometimes watch me without a raid is something I can't wrap my head around quite yet. And I've actually gotten emotional a couple of times. I'm where I had to walk away and come back, compose myself. It's YouTube, same thing where I'm just not used to this yet. So it's been really cool. I'm wildly passionate about the game. So this is I love sharing that with other people. I like people, and
it's an interesting
you and I took
point.
to each other quickly. So
we became friends, before even kind of our YouTubes both respectively started doing well. And which I think a lot of that is that, to be honest, there's not that many people making content on this game. I mean, there's only, a handful of us YouTubers out there. And when I realized that one of the things people ask for almost more than anything is build guides, people were asking for an Iron Man build guide, much like they're asking for every one of it. And you are basically, you and Zayas, right, or Zayas, or however you say his name, are probably arguably the two best Iron Men, live at the moment, I would think, right?
Yeah. Now, there's some specialty Iron Men that we have. We're an X-Force. We're like the gold standard right now for alliances.
Yep, Reminixes.
And we are abundant with Iron Men. So I don't want to sell any of the other Iron Men short, but some of them like Thibodeax and English Lion, very good, very into PvP. I'm kind of a catch-all build.
Yeah.
So I just got the Sentinel of Boundaries title, and typically in Dark Zone, my PvE build is pretty exceptional. In there, I've built the Jericho build is what we nicknamed it, and basically what that is, it's a single target melter of bosses. So that was a hit. Previously to this, the belief was that Black Widows would be the only ones able to grab that coveted Dark Zone title, and with that build, that's no longer the case. Perry, also another Iron Man. Now very normal to see Iron Men in the top spots in Dark Zone because of that single target damage that we're able to put out with that build. So it was just something I kind of stumbled on. Zayas and I do talk a lot about Iron Man. We're constantly making adjustments. We're never satisfied. So we're still chasing that perfect, tweaked, dialed in build, and we'll probably never get it. We're never happy. So
what I would like to do today, since I have access to you, is ask you for a build that would be sort of as you called yourself, a catch-all. Let's try to get a catch-all hybrid build that the majority of the people that are either, free to play, that maybe only have the 2000 gem purple costume, and the basic Omega cards or whatever, all the way up to the people that are maybe going to have 800,000 power on a new server by this point because they're really well and out or whatever, right? That can use a build that might be decent. I know it's a little bit of a hard question because catch-alls aren't really something this game is specifically catered to. It's more of particular things. But what I figured I could do is at least ask you the basics that should be able to help as many people as possible. So I have my Iron Man here, and I figured the first thing we could start with is, in your opinion, what's the best skill set, let's say, for maximum damage, either in PvE or PvP? Is there a build that we could get for people for maximum damage output, for instance?
Yeah, so basically I have 3 loadouts that I use all 3 of them.
Okay.
And the first one is PvP. Second one is the Jericho, which is single target damage.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a PvE. I don't want anyone to ever confuse that. It is a single target. It's for raids and for Dark Zone, and that's it. If you're running blitzes or things where you feel like you're going to have a battle challenge, for instance, you're going to want to mix it up and have a variety of things. Single target only skills are not what you want. And then the third and final one, Spec Ops kind of came out of nowhere. I used to be able to face roll through them and put up high scores. People could cheese them. You grab a couple alliance mates that want to get on the same page and ramp your score up. You could do that. Now you actually have to be skilled to pull off good scores. As you know, it supposedly wipes out all of your advantages from gear and such, and it's up to skill. Last season I was top 2 in everything, so I was either number 1 or number 2 in every game mode. We've got this thing though where we all tie for Dimension Duel and X-Force. So, yeah. So the PvP build or the Spec Ops build, very similar builds, and they are catch-all builds. They're builds that are pretty good everywhere. They put up very good PvE numbers, but yeah.
So how about that build then? Let's do the one that's a little bit more. We'll do as many different things as possible, because I understand you got your Jericho build that's maybe like the most optimal, right? Single target specific use thing. We could tell people about that, but maybe it's not so good when they're blowing through mobs trying to do the purple missions or something that most people are probably at the thing at for the moment. So let's try. Can you walk me through what would be your most general use one you were telling me then about here? What would be your
the very first ability? Yep. The very first ability is second one on the left. We have the weapon cartridges.
Okay.
The very last ability, which is guided missiles. That is Iron Man's. That's Black Widow's snipe shot. Or that's your bread and butter. It works in any and every build. You should always be using it. It's amazing. So you're gonna see in this 209% damage, but hits up to 16 targets. So it's obviously a great AoE ability. However, if on the fly you're facing a boss, you'll notice the next sentence is deals greater damage when missiles stack on a target. So we open with that, and cooldown order is important. So we open with that. The next one we want is going to be the 5th one in, very first ability, and it is called Anti-Tank Missile.
I see.
The reason why we like Anti-Tank Missile is low cooldown again, so you can spam these. Low stamina, decent guard break, and it hits multiple targets and hits like a truck. So now we have 2 low cooldown abilities that hit like a truck and can hit either single targets for a ton of damage or multiple targets for a ton of damage.
Nice.
So we spam those 2 abilities. Now, the third one you would swap out, and you will either use Weakness Scan if you have plenty of cooldown. If you're in a state where you're running plenty of cooldown, or you're running the cooldown spec. So there is a specialization that helps with cooldown. If you're using either one of those, where you're either good cooldown or you're running the cooldown spec, then you're going to want to run Weakness Scan there. If you are not, you want the second one in, which is Operation Speed Amplification. Those are the only 2 you will ever use out of that tree.
Got it. So then we use... So essentially what you're saying is for the next move, then we use the 6th move here, and we're either going to use the first or the second one.
So it just matters where you're at in the game. So if your spec tree for the cooldown ability is in good shape, run Weakness Scan. If cooldowns are still an issue, you want to go with speed up. This is all about spamming abilities.
You're trying to cycle through. So essentially, the idea I'm getting from this build is you pick as many high DPS, multi-target, and single target, scalable type of moves, and then you swap them in a way where they essentially decrease the cooldowns, and you repeat them over and over and over again, correct?
So the 4th ability is Spin Blade. and this is one of the best abilities in game, and it hits like a truck. It is also an iframe, which is super helpful. And when you're using it in PvP, what you want to do is you want to hold onto this as an escape move, or if you just see a mess of people in there and you want to create a ruckus, you just you spin blade into everyone, and all kinds of neat things happen, and people are dead. So
this is the
hard,
Master Chief. This is the Master Chief sword, is what you're telling me right here.
Yeah. So this particular build, Blitz, it's a catch-all. Good spec ops, but when you use it in PvP, you want to spam guided missiles and anti-tank, and then if you're running the cooldown spec, once you hit weakness scan, you'll get the cooldown, so you can spam those abilities all over again, and then now they're ramped up and they do more damage. If you aren't at that point yet, you use the Operation Speed Amplification, and then you get the same result where you get to go through them again, and you get some extra ult. So when you're in PvP, you spam those 3 abilities, and you hold on to Spin Blade for when you want to create a mess. The 5th one is Party Time Protocol, and for a lot of reasons. The bots are great. However, the one thing that this is through all the testing we've done. We have a series called Damage Labs, where we do all the single target DPS, area of effect stuff, you name it. We do all the things. And that number's wrong. It's not correct number. They're lying to you. I have hit for 1.4 mil with the swoop in headbutt. It's amazing.
I thought it did a lot of damage when I was
so
doing mobs in Sakar.
It's one of the hardest hitting abilities, but you see on your screen it says 523% damage. That's wildly incorrect. You actually want it more for the swoop in and all that massive damage. And then the bots are just a perk, which is kind of weird to think that way, isn't it?
It's also incredibly cheesy in Dimension Duel early on. Like, I mean, I know right now people watching this are like, I hate this move in Dimension Duel. I don't know which one that I'm trying to hit.
Yeah. So those are the 5. The 5th one, Party Time Protocol, you can kind of play around with it. There's a couple other things you can swap in there that are also good. But right now, through all the testing, this is Tibbo, English Lion, Zayas, and myself. We use pretty much these abilities in different orders, and we've all tested these. We've tried every variable of Iron Man in PvP, and these are the abilities right here, man. And this is wild amounts of testing between several of us, and we all talk to each other. This is a great build anywhere, though. I was still in Dark Zone tonight. I ran this instead of Jericho, and still was leading in DPS most of the time. So
let's ask you about potential then. So for the people that aren't going to have unlimited potential, which are the ones they want to focus on first?
I prefer anything and everything related to crit. So if it says crit on it, I lean into it first, and I go with crit rate. And accuracy is something you're going to worry about more so when you get into the high end of Dimension Duel, and that's more specifically for Spider-Man. Other than that, I prefer anything that says crit on it, or crit rate, or max crit, whatever. Attack, they weight it really heavy in this game.
Very.
So if you pick up some attack along the way, fantastic. But Iron Man isn't necessarily meant in any figment of the imagination to be a tank. So anything that says defense on it, you can just deprioritize. Swing back to it later when you get all the other ones done.
So maybe that brings us into specialization as the final one. What is it that you would tell people to move and acquire first in specialization?
Okay, so let me open it on my screen here. Specializations. So you've heard me reference quite a few times. Down at the bottom, you have the bottom 3. On the right, there's the orange ability there, and that is the algorithm improvement. So that's what I was referring to. If you build into this, or let's say I have like 43% cooldown on my gear. However, I still run this. And that's basically because we want to spam guided missile and anti-tank as much as we can. And this helps do that. So it's attached to Jarvis class abilities. The third one we have in the cooldown is weakness scan or operation speed amplification. Both are Jarvis abilities. So it will click this buff in. It shows that the buff is active. When you hit this, you get an additional buff that shows that you're in the cooldown stage to where you're using the buff. And then you cycle back through. And like I said, you hold on to spin blade and just you just let it go when you'll know once you get good at using this this setup, you'll know when to use it to create a mess. So.
And what would be your other three then in that case?
Okay. Now, my other one is 2 spots to the left of that, and that is weakness analysis. It's just good everywhere with the caveat that because burn damage isn't something you lean into so much in PvP, Spin Blade just outright kills people, so who cares if you have the burn debuff on them, or the burn bleed
right.
debuff. However, it's amazing when you use it in PvE. So you slap that debuff on them, and in the Jericho build, for instance, we lead with this to set up, and then we unibeam the ever-living, out of the bad guy. So, yeah, so that's a big one. I have a love-hate relationship with it just because, like I said, with PvP, you don't really get to reap the benefits from it. The next one is going to be to the left of that ability, and that is anti-armor bullet. And basically that's, especially you really feel it in modes like Dark Zone and in raids when you breach that 50% mark and you're in the burn stage of killing something. That then doubles down. Let's say you got a bleed stack with the previous buff, and then you have that kicks in at 50%. That's why you see me put up some really, really wild numbers in PvE. And I'm sure it's helpful in PvP. Just like I'm so overpowered right now that generally I'm one-shotting people, and I don't feel that as much from that ability. But in PvP, you really see that. PvE.
A fair question people will probably wonder then is, do you believe Iron Man is particularly good in PvP, or do you just believe you're significantly stronger than people to the point of you're overpowering them? Or do you think it's... How much of that is there in there?
I think he's arguably either number 1 or second place in PvP right now. Regardless, if you are someone that's a min-maxer and you search up data like this, you put it into effect, you get good at using it, you'll reap the advantages. And
who would you argue his competition is?
Spider-Man or other Iron Man, not to be braggadocious.
Other Iron Man. Iron Man
Yeah.
2.0.
So last season, I went 78-2. Both Iron Men, my losses. One was an alliance mate and one was not. So that's the only... 78-2. I mean, I faced a lot of people in that time. So, it was just 2 other Iron Men that beat me. Spider-Man, if built right, can be a big problem. You heard me reference the accuracy issue earlier. He can ramp his dodge up to a point where if you're not in at least the 25 to 30% mark, you're going to have a hard time with Spidey if he's built right.
So then people are going to ask...
Widow.
Black Widow.
Yeah, Black Widow. I don't remember the last time I lost to a Black Widow.
So then people are going to ask, that was 3 of the masteries. What's the last active trait?
And then the last one is at the bottom right in the middle, and that is overclock. Okay. And pretty self-explanatory.
Yep.
You
More
do
damage.
face the... Yep, you do face the chance that you might stam lock, depending on if you use some of the other builds that I have. That can happen because there's the repulsor build where you're using the unibeam. They're all really heavy stam abilities, but they work.
Good boots, so, I'm assuming. So if for some reason that becomes an issue, I would say, let's say you don't have any cooldown issues, replace
the algorithm improvement for the ability that's to the right of that, and that's energy recycling. And that's a counter to the other ability that we were just talking about. So
that makes sense.
That's your way to kind of get yourself out of the hole if you're having that itch. I've invested in it a little bit, but I have pretty good stamina ability, so I'm good.
Well, I think that is probably going to wrap up all of the general information you need to know on this. We could go into cores and omega cards, but I think that those are items that are really limited to people's resources, whereas specializations and skills and the potential ASU are probably ones that the general people are going to need. But I want to recommend everybody go over the Half Sim's channel. It is called Half Sim Marvel Future Revolution, correct?
Yes, sir.
So go on over there, and it's Half Sim, but it's a 5 for the S. That's
a branding thing, man.
It's a branding algorithm. All the search engine optimizations.
Yeah.
But anything you want to say on the way out the door here, man? Any you want to do a plug for yourself here and tell people why they love you?
You know what? The only plug I have is that I love this game. I love sharing my passion with other people, and I really dig the social side of this game as well. As long as you don't pay too much attention to global chat, you're in good shape. And hey, man, we became friends because of this game.
We became friends. See? Yeah. No, I mean the most annoying people are always the loudest. You just gotta ignore them and move on with your life. It's pretty much the way it goes. But go sub to my boy Tony here. All right, everybody, and it'll be in the pinned comment. We'll have a link. You can click on it to sub to him, and that's it. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.